Hello and welcome to Kim's Cozy Corner. One of the videos that I've had most requested lately is my drip irrigation system. And today I'm going to show you how I'm adding to my drip irrigation system. So come on, let's get started. So today I'm adding to my drip irrigation system. I've had my drip irrigation system in place now for 2 years, so this will be the third year for my drip irrigation system. But I've added a few beds. So I've added these two metal raised beds here, and can you even see it? There's a third one over there. So there are 3 metal raised beds that I've added, and I am going to put them on drip irrigation along with everything else I have. So let's talk about what I currently have in place. My main water supply is way over here, way over here. My garden is over here. So I run a water hose in front of the garage all the way over to this spot here. And then from here is where I start my drip irrigation. So I tie in right here at the side of my garage. And there's the line right there. That's the main water supply going down each row to each of the different beds. Once I get to one of the beds, I have a valve to turn that bed on or off, depending on if I need water going to it or not. And then once I get into the bed, I use emitters, drip emitters. And I just run these smaller drip emitters throughout the bed, depending on what I'm planting. Now, I don't have drip on everything. There are a few things that I prefer not to put drip irrigation on. And one of those are my GreenStalk vertical planters. Now, if you're interested in a drip irrigation system for them, they do have one on their website that you could put on your GreenStalks if you're interested. I personally prefer to hand water my GreenStalks, and I'm hand watering my GreenStalks while my raised bed gardens are being watered at the same time. Another item that I do not put on drip irrigation are all of my containers. Now, I don't have, well, I take that back. I probably have about 40 or 50 containers. Most of them are potatoes. Actually, this year, all of them are potatoes. But in my containers, I don't put them on drip irrigation. I prefer to hand water them as well. So for all of my containers, whether I'm talking a plastic container like these right here, or if I'm talking grow bags, I water those by hand. The only thing that I have on drip irrigation are my main garden raised beds. Now, let's talk about the brands and the type of materials I use for my drip irrigation. There are a lot of different brands out there. I'm not saying I have the best one. I'm not affiliated with any of them. I just watched a lot of videos and figured out what works best for me. So my main water supply is this hose right here. And this is a, what is this, half inch? I think it's a half inch. Yeah, this is a half-inch supply hose. There are no holes in this particular material. Now, I will put links down below. I got everything on Amazon, but this main supply hose is solid. It has no holes in it, and I use that to run to each and every one of the beds. Now, once I'm in the bed, I mentioned drip emitters. And here's one of those drip emitters here. And you can find these on Amazon as well. I believe this is Rainbird. Yes, it is. These are 1/4-inch tubing with emitters every 6 inches. So let me show you what I'm talking about if I can find the end. So every 6 inches, it will drip. So every 6 inches, there's an emitter, and that emitter will drip a certain amount of water over time. Let's see, what did I get? This is a 0.8 gallons per hour emitter. So in an hour, it's going to drip 0.8 gallons at each one of these emitters. So I don't have to worry about adjusting how much water is going to each and every plant. I know how much it's going to get in about an hour. That's if I had a plant every 6 inches. And you can get them every 12 inches. It's very windy out here today. You can get them every, I think I've seen 8 inches as well. But they come in many different colors, different sizes, and different emitters as well. So those are the main pieces, but you got to put it together, right? And so I am going to show you how I put it together with some of my connectors. I saved a bed right here so I can show you how I do it. And it's not hard. Once I figured out how to do it, I made sure I installed it in all of my raised beds. And then I went next door to the neighbor's garden and installed them over there. So all of our raised beds are on drip. And I'm going to be honest with you, I used to spend hours in the garden watering. Now, instead of spending hours in the garden, I probably spend about 30 minutes watering, because I still water all of my containers and all of my green stalks, but I'm doing it at the same time that my raised beds are being watered. So in 30 minutes, everything's watered, everything's good, and I get to walk away. So let me show you how I'm setting up this new raised bed behind me. Now, just before I do this bed behind me, I thought about something else. There are different types of systems as well. So you can get a drip emitter that comes in a little bitty piece, a little bitty piece. Let me show you one. This right here, this little bitty thing right here, this little thing is a drip emitter. And you can put it on the end of a tube like this, and it will drip in one spot onto one plant at whatever rate it says. So this is 1 gallon per hour. And I had this set up on some plants in the past, but I don't use this anymore. I prefer the tubing. It also, you can get like the little sprayers. So here's one with a little sprayer where it has a little hole all the way around, and it'll spray in a circle, and you can adjust how wide that spray is. And for this one is, it just says 360 degrees. And I've used this before as well. I didn't like it. You can actually put this right onto this right here, and it'll spray 360 degrees all the way around in a circle around this little red piece. So there are all different types of drip systems. You just have to find the one that works for you. I prefer this hose. I think it gives me, since we're trying to water a lot of different places at the same time, I can kind of control how much I'm watering each bed at the same time a little better than I can with the little drip emitters. So that's why I use the hose. Now we will start setting up this system. So let me start with what I've done so far. Here's my original system coming around this way, and it goes this way right here, and you get right there, and I have a shutoff valve. That was already in place from where I tried to hook up some pots in years past, but that's all old system coming over to here. So I've tied into this old system here. So we tied in, we come over to this first bed right here. I'm coming up and I put in another shutoff valve so I can shut off just this bed. This is a potato bed. And so I come up, I can shut off, and then I take that main supply hose into the bed, and then from there I tie in my emitter tubing to that. And that's what we're getting ready to work on now. So that first bed is done. I've already run the tubing down to the second bed over there, but we haven't done it yet. And then we're going to work on this one right now. So the tubing goes around, and it goes right there, and I have a T right there. So I can come up to this bed right here, and the T goes straight back to the other bed that's just behind it. And so we are going to tie in right here at this T. So to tie in at that T, there are many different ways you can tie in. So they have these type of connectors where you have to really struggle to like get them on the hose. You have to force it over these little humps to make sure that it doesn't leak. That's one style. That's what I started with, just to be honest with you. And then they have upgraded over the years where I don't even know if I have any more T's to show you. Well, these are 90s, but same ideal where it's more pressure connected. So I just slip it on and I don't have to worry about all of that struggling to get the pieces to fit together. And I have this style T down here. And then we're going to come up with supply hosing with a 90-degree and put it right here over the edge. And then we will run our drip emitter. So I need to first do some measuring. I'm not going to measure that close, just to be honest with you. But we're going to need to do some measuring. Yeah, I'm still looking for a T. I don't have one. Oh, there is another one. All right, so this is the T that I have down there. So the T, you just hook it up to this end here, another end, and then up to the bed. So that's the T that I have just down here. So now let's measure some of this tubing. So I need enough tubing to fit into the T, and then it's going to fit into this 90 right at the top. So let's just do some estimating here. Oh, wait a minute. I need a supply valve. I'm getting ahead of myself. I do want a supply valve for this bed if I have one. Here they are. So the supply valve, or to turn it on or off to the bed, we need to measure that in as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is still go ahead and measure the tube. I have plenty, so you got to have nice sharp shears, whatever you're going to use. I'm going to make sure they're good and sharp. All right. So for the supply, this is the old-fashioned supply. This is Rainbird as well, but it's not compression. You're going to have to like just really push it on. So I'm going to put it on first because it's harder to do before I connect to the main supply down below. I hope this is making sense. And you just wiggle it on. Now, it's good to do this on a nice hot day too, just to let you know, but I'm not at a nice hot day. I wish I was, but I'm not. But you keep wiggling it on. I'm going to put my gloves on. That'll help. But if you'll look, you want to wiggle it on until it reaches the little point where you know it's all the way on. And just give it a little wiggle. You can also put this in warm water, and that'll make it more pliable to help it move around a little more. I didn't do that today. I just wiggled it on. I got it on because this is one of the few places where I have to do this task. So I didn't want to go around carrying a whole bunch of hot water for a couple of places when I can just wiggle them on. Nice pair of gloves will help keep from getting your hands sore. Okay, we got one end on. Let's put the other end on. Get my little gloves on. Just a little wiggle back and forth. Some pressure. And I have that all the way on, all the way up to the top where it connects. And that's the process. And so I have a valve so I can turn this bed on and off if it needs to be on and off. I have a valve on each one of these metal raised beds that I'm connecting right now. So the next step for me is to connect this into the T that's down below. And if you remember, the T is more compression. So all I got to do is push it down in there. All right, I think I'm in there. Now, I would have went ahead and did this yesterday, but I wanted you to be able to see what I was doing. So I'm making it kind of difficult for myself. Let me bring you in close so you can see what I did. So I just did this exact same thing right there. And now I'm coming up and I'm going to attach the 90. So the 90 is going to get attached right here for this bed. So we got the 90 on. So we need to go from a 1/2 inch, which is this right here, to a 1/4 inch. And you're going to say, well, how am I supposed to do that? Well, let me show you what kind of attachments and gadgets we're going to use. So I am going to first take this 90 right here, which is a 1/2 inch 90. Well, it's going to be a 1/2 inch 90, and I'm going to attach this hose right here to it. Now this hose, if I don't close the end off, water's just going to roll off the end of it. So you have to make it end. And so to do that, I take one of these little things right here, and then you slide it on, you bend the end down, and you slide it through the other end. So that just creates a kink. So now it won't leak on the end. And I hook into my 90. And remember, it's just compression, so I'm going to push. All right, I'm in my 90, and I'm going to just turn this down out the way because this hose honestly doesn't mean anything to me. This is the hose we care about. So now I need to hook this hose right here to this 1/2 inch supply line. And the way we do that are with these little bitty fittings, if you want to call it that. And they come in many different name brands. I will put a couple different name brands down there. But these little bitty fittings are the same thing as this 90 and these T's, but just on a 1/4 inch scale. And so this is a container of 280 pieces. And they have T's and elbows and straight pieces and plugs and all kinds of little things for this 1/4 inch line. So for this 1/4 inch line, I'm going to need a piece to connect it from here to the supply hose. And I'm going to need a piece on the end of it so that water don't just drip out the end when I get to the end of how I'm going to lay out this bed. But for now, we just need the piece to connect it to the supply line. And I just need a straight piece. There we go. It's called a straight barb is what it's actually called. To connect this, you just, again, this is one of those times I'm going to have to push it in. So I'll put my gloves on. Before I got those compression lines, when I was first learning how to do this, ooh, my hands were raw from how often I had to keep pushing and working these barbs into the lines when I first set it up. And I set up my entire garden and my neighbor's garden within like 2 weeks. And I mean, that's a lot of that's a lot of drip irrigation. For each of those beds, boy, I tell you, it was a lot of work. Now I got it in, but I need to punch a hole somehow in this line right here so I can connect to the main supply line. So they come with, well, some of them do, this hole puncher. You can buy them separately or they can come in your kit, but this one came separately. It's got a hole puncher for 1/4 inch here, and it's got a hole punch for the 1/2 inch. So if I'm going 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch, there's a puncher for that. But I am trying to put a 1/4 inch into this main line. So I'm going to punch a hole. It's super easy. You just wiggle back and forth. There's your hole. Connect right to it. It punches right in, or pushes right in, I should say. And they don't leak either. I don't know how, but they don't leak. And now my supply line is in. But I need to figure out how much supply line I need. So I have 3 rows of vegetables in this bed. In the front, I have carrots. In the middle, I have herbs. And in the back, I have climbing peas right now, but it could be something else later. So this is a 3-area bed. So I'm going to run 1 line of drip irrigation for each one of these rows. So let's do that next. Now, I have not cut it yet because I don't know how much I need. So I am going to start just rolling this out. And I use fabric staples to kind of keep my lines where I want them to be. So we'll put one here in the beginning. We'll put one down here on the end. Come back down this way, around the herbs. Down on the very end here, I have a, what is that called? A ground cherry down here on this end. And then I'm going to run right in front of my peas. Now, to be completely honest with you, you should put your drip irrigation in before you have plants, if you know what you need and how you're going to lay it out, or put it in at the same time as your seeds and your transplants. And I'm doing this after the fact because time just didn't allow for it. So now I'm down to the other end here, and where do I want to cut it off? All I got to do is just give it a clip and put in a plug right on the end. All right, I think I got it. And I try to take my time when I'm doing this because I want to make sure that I don't have any leaks. So if you do it right the first time, just take your time, do it right the first time, and you don't have to worry about leaks. Now this bed is fully laid out with drip irrigation, and that bed's done as well. So I'm going to go over there and work on the last bed, and then I will have added drip irrigation to the whole raised bed garden for this year. In this raised bed right here, I have Kozy's and crops. I have broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage. And I have a little bit of Napa cabbage and just a teeny little bit of lettuce left. I've picked most of it. I think there's 2 heads of lettuce left in this bed here. I already have a shutoff valve on the other side. Here's my main supply line coming around in the bed, which I put in place yesterday. Just ran out of time. It just got too dark on me. And so now we're going to tie into this. I have a little bit of tubing left here, so we are going to use this tubing. I don't believe in wasting any amount of tubing. There's my straight barb. I'll put that in there. And I took my gloves off again. Gloves on, gloves off, gloves on, gloves off. If you don't want sore fingers, that's what you do. Now I could tie in multiple times. I could put one here, one on the next row, one on the next row, one on the next row. But then I need more of the little stoppers for the end. And I don't have that many. I'm going to run one, and I'm going to wrap it around the bed like I always do. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to put 2 in, since this piece is just long enough for about 1 long row. This is a 5.5 foot bed, or 5-foot bed. So we'll use this one piece, we'll go around this side, and then we'll add another one over there, and we'll finish the bed off. So I'm punching a hole in the main supply. Sorry, I forgot to tell you what I was doing. I'm going to add the barb to the main, and it just pushes right in. It's in. And I'm going to use this full piece. So I'm going to go ahead and put the stopper on the end, since I'm going to use all of it. All right, I got my little oops in, or the plug on the end is in. Again, this would have been easier if I did it before my plants got so big. Okay, that one's in. Again, this is the Rainbird name brand, but there are many different name brands. So we will tie into the line right here on this end and wrap it through, and that's how we'll do it. So I've added drip irrigation to all of my brand new metal raised beds. There's drip irrigation on the potatoes, on the cool season crops, and the carrots and the herbs behind me. Now I am fully covered in drip irrigation in all of my raised beds. And I've showed you my products that I like to use and my process, but there's so many other ways to do it, not just my way. So I thought I'd take just a moment and show you how I kind of crisscross this drip emitter through some of my beds, depending on what I'm growing. In this bed, there are like two main rows. There are tomatoes in the back, and I have peppers in the front, and you'll see that I have a black drip emitter going through this bed as well as a brown. And these crops needed a little extra water, so I added extra drip to this bed. And this year, I don't think I need that much drip, but it's already in the bed, and so we're going to keep it in the bed. Even in this bed back here, I have drip coming around this back side here next to the edge. And then I have drip in this triangle bed where I have some cool season cabbage in the front. And along the back side back there, there's drip running through there as well for my cucumbers. And right in the center of this triangle are some zinnias, and there's drip even for the zinnias. Now I have run drip to containers before as well. So I have drip coming all the way around here. There's drip on these huge hostas, which I've taken seeds in the past from and started my own hostas. And then it comes over to this strawberry container. Well, it's mostly a weed container at the moment. And these two containers here, all the way over to that container there on the end. There's drip irrigation that I need to get back in place into the pots to make sure that it's ready to go. But this is just a matter of picking it up and moving it to where it needs to be. In this bed of weeds here is one of the hostas I started from seeds a couple years ago that's popped up. On this side here, I have drip irrigation running across the back where I'm going to have my pole beans. And then I have drip running right in the center of my onions. And of course, drip on the tomatoes back there. Now, I just planted these beds last weekend with corn, and I do have drip back there. I just kind of crisscrossed it and tried to make it as even as possible in these back beds back here where I just planted corn. I'm just trying to show you that there's no right way and there's no wrong way. It's whatever works for you. This is the way I like to do it. I'm sure there are other ways out there. So until next time, and there will be a next time that I'm in Kim's Kozy Corner doing some kind of Kim Kozy project. So until then, see you later.